This is Mommying While Muslim, recorded live and unedited. Watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
One of our sponsors this month is Guidance Residential. They're offering a Ramadan gift to you with $500 off your refinancing. Go ahead and click on our links in order to find out how to get that. This episode is also sponsored by Muslim Kids TV, where you can find over 15,000 resources, including Islamic videos, games, and ebooks for your children. Use code MKTV2021 to get a 25% discount off of your annual subscription.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Momming While Muslim podcast. This is Uzma Jaffrey.
And this is Zeba Hassan. How are you doing today, Uzma?
I am excellent. How are you?
How was your Eid? We are recording this live, but really by the time this comes, it's going to be Eid. So let's pretend like Eid was fabulous and awesome. Like, how fun is that? How was your Eid, Dr. Uzma Jaffrey?
My Eid was awesome. Open house for my friends. And alhamdulillah, almost everyone is vaccinated, and those who aren't, mask or will be outdoors or socially distanced. So it's good. And it's going to be a potluck. So I don't have to Martha Stewart or IG anything, because I just have to open up my house and let people walk through it, because that's why I built it. And alhamdulillah, it's finally going to be put to good use. And the kids have been wanting a party with their friends for a really long time.
Because
So
it's been
I'm
a
happy
long
to.
time.
It's been over a year since we've had people over. So it's time.
Well, I am excited, and I had heard through another group that you give really good EDs, so I wish I lived closer
Close.
to you, because I thought I was doing a good job, and you're like, "Girl, what are you doing? Don't be that
Level up,
cheap
level up.
auntie."
What are you
So
doing
no,
for
I
Eid?
definitely
Or-
appreciate it. We have gone through,
Oh, yes.
hopefully. And it's so weird to record live, but I love it because Uzma is giving us a day off in the middle of the month. So I appreciate doing the double duty so we can have those extra days off. But the plans of right now, which hopefully will have transpired, is we are going through an Eid drive-through where there's going to be lots
Oh.
of fun things. So I will post about it because I'm super excited about doing something fun. Sadly, my two older ones have SOLs, and it does not mean the bad word that I learned before.
Minutes ago.
It's standards of learning, which I didn't know what that SOL actually meant. But they have, we're not allowed to have tests on the day of Eid. That has been passed.
Alhamdulillah.
Except there's one the day before and the day after, which means my two older ones don't necessarily have that opportunity to be footloose and fancy free as with my other ones. But I am planning to enjoy the beautiful day with my family. So that is how I will and have. I feel like I'm in an episode of,
Twilight
The
Zone.
Flash. No, The Flash with
Oh,
the
yes.
multi-universes. That's what I'm feeling like right now. But you know what? We have to keep on top of it. But can
Yes.
you tell us what our soapbox of the week is? Because I always love hearing about it.
Yeah, so this is going to be about the COVID vaccine. As some of you have heard, Pfizer has submitted a request to start testing the vaccine in children ages 2 to 11 years old. We hope to have, it's been approved in children 12 to 15, and we need to get the supplies out for them, hopefully by the end of the summer. But in the meantime, there's been a lot of misinformation about it. And here's the surprising source, or a major source that surprised me. And this misinformation is being disseminated on online mom forums. So one of them is Crunchy Moms of Florida. So each of us has like a Crunchy Moms Facebook page in our locale, right? So Crunchy Moms Florida, I mean, it's Florida, so I'm not surprised. But their administrator was discussing how a lot of members on that particular page are discussing medical freedom and will not get vaccinated because they're exercising their medical freedom. But she herself is vaccinated. And even though she's a crunchy mom, she's like, yeah, I believe in vaccines, but I have had to turn off all of the comments on vaccinations. But they're coming up with loopholes and discussing medical freedom, and it's getting really ugly. A lot of the discussions that she is witnessing an uptick in is claims of infertility and miscarriages being like the top two seeds of misinformation that are being planted on her particular page, but there's multiple other pages. There are major influencers, guys, who are also saying these things. So it's crazy. So my takeaway from it was, again, A, it's Florida. Okay, I'm not surprised. B, on the very last part of the segment, that's going to be cited in our show notes for you to watch about this particular incidents about mom groups disseminating misinformation about the vaccine. Um, the reporter asked a really interesting question, and she asked, well, why do you think it is that these women, don't trust the medical establishment? And a lot of them had birth traumas, or they had some kind of medical trauma that makes them mistrust the medical establishment. And for that reason, they are using their social media platforms in order to, um, well, it makes them more vulnerable to those campaigns and conspiracy theories. Uh, and yeah, it's just sad that it's medical trauma and birth trauma in particular for moms that has led them to not trust information from the CDC and from like every major world authority about the COVID vaccine being completely safe and not being related to miscarriages and certainly not to infertility. And then C, I don't think OB-gynecologists are doing a good enough job of telling pregnant women to get vaccinated. There were a couple of pregnant women who are choosing not to get vaccinated on this particular segment because they've heard about this infertility and miscarriage stuff and they think it's real. And OBs are not telling their patients to get the COVID vaccine because, we don't know what we don't know. And they are medically liable, which means they can be sued if, God forbid, something happens. And hello, something always happens in pregnancy. It's a pregnancy. It's always a surprise, right? So their medical liability is kind of playing a bigger role than medical necessity and public health. So those are the three things I think that were really interesting at the end of that segment. But my soapbox will end with the COVID vaccine does not cause any higher incidence of infertility or miscarriage than anything else that you do. So I'm sorry that it's moms that are disseminating this information because y'all, we can do better. That's our soapbox for today.
I definitely appreciate that. It's always nerve-wracking. And you remembered how I felt about the vaccine as
Yes.
well. Though we're all vaccinated, and now that it's been approved for the younger set, my daughter will get vaccinated as soon as we can.
Hmm.
And with everything, you have to just leave it to God, Elizabeth Anthala, because at the end of the day,
Hmm.
it really is up to Him. So I do feel for some of these ladies, but like you said, the faster we can get vaccinated, the faster it'll be for all of us. But thank you for that. This month's Mommies in the Masjid, as you know, means a lot to us because in the last year, many of us have had to kind of live without a place to worship. We've had to kind of convert corners of our house, in my case, my closet, into places of spirituality and connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we've had to celebrate 2 Ramadans, 2 Eids, a half. This Eid was a half, it's still kind of hybrid, without a place to go to pray. So personally, like I talked about in the last episode, I've never felt 100% comfortable in the masjid. It's problematic. I get it. And we are continuing our talk today to find out why masjid boards look like the way they do and what happens when women actually try to lead and what we can do better to help support these ladies on these boards. Kristy Sabbah is an activist and volunteer, as well as a Muslim mom leader who has worked with CARE, a major Muslim organization, for over 15 years. She has served as a board member on many of these organizations, including specifically the Masjid. And she is here to give us a little bit of a peek behind the scenes as a woman at the board, at the helm. Kristy.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum. Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very blessed and honored to be with you guys today.
Yeah, thank you for being so patient because it only took me a year and a half to schedule this because I wanted a whole series. I was like hell
Yes.
bent on I need to have the series of Women in the Masjid, and Kristy was the first person I ever contacted because, when I first
Yes.
moved here 14 years ago, she was the first, like, she was the mom I wanted to be like. because
Oh,
she
I
was
love
in
that.
it, and it's a silly reason, but, am I allowed to say your daughter's name?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Loved it, and I thought that I was the only one who was going to name her daughter Janine. And then I heard the name and I was like, "Oh, so it is a thing." So I was super duper excited and decided that, if I had a daughter, that's what I would name her. That did not end up happening. I did not name my daughter that, but Kristy's daughters are models, and I just absolutely adore what she continues to do for our community and how she continues to mother her wonderful children, as well as our community out here. Sorry, we're going to glitch a little bit.
Okay. So
I think we have a Jen again. So, Kristy, we usually start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your mom story and your momming philosophy.
perfect. So I am the mother of four daughters, all
Oh, I
girls
Congrats.
in
love
our
that.
house. Yes. Um, and my oldest is 17, graduating high school this year.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
How did that
It's
happen?
mind blowing. And then 15, 12, and 11 are my
Gosh.
other ones.
Oh.
Yes, so we have a house full of girls here. I told my husband the closest you're getting to a son is a son-in-law because we're done.
Oh my.
But there's
So,
time for that. Don't rush into that.
yes, yes, yes. No, no rush, no rush. Absolutely,
Wonderful.
absolutely. Yeah.
And your
So,
momming philosophy.
yeah, I am very much a hands-on mom. I think that it's important to be engaged and involved with my kids and with their activities. I'm that crazy soccer mom that's out on the field screaming and
Hmm.
cheering my kids on. That's totally me.
Yes. Which is
Um,
why I lose my voice all the time. As Isma says, stop
right,
screaming at the basketball games.
right, right. I have one daughter who thrives on it, and another daughter is like, "Please stop."
You're
Stop.
embarrassing me, Mom.
Exactly.
Right, right, exactly. So, but I tell them that's a parental right that I have is that I get that opportunity to embarrass them, and they'll understand that when they get older.
Exactly.
So, I have been leading Girl Scouts for my daughters for over the past 10 years. I've been their troop leader, and that has just been a phenomenal experience just watching the growth and development of the girls through the Girl Scout program. So yeah, I try to be as hands-on as the girls allow me to be. Now that they're a little
Mhm.
bit older, they're asking for a little more space. And it's been nice for me because it's giving me a little more of my own me time as well. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, for those who don't know you, can you talk a little bit about your family background and maybe your introduction to the masjid?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I would love to. So I was born and raised in a very small town in South Dakota. You might hear the accent a little bit. Um, Graduated high school, packed up my bags, and moved to New York. So,
Mm.
yeah, huge change. I just always knew there was something more out there that I wanted to explore and experience. Um, and then, lo and behold, met my husband, who's was the first Muslim that I had actually ever met in my life. Coming
Mhm,
from a small town, I'm talking small, like
mhm.
population of 700, small town.
Wow.
Yeah.
Radiator
So
Springs.
yes,
Oh, I
yes,
love Radiator
absolutely.
Springs.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very, very tiny town. So my husband was the first Muslim that I ever met, and when we got married, I had no interest to actually convert to the religion, and he was very great about that, not pressuring me, not pushing. It was you have yours, I have mine. Let's just move forward, and worked great for us until 9/11 happened. And
Mm,
then I was like, wow, like, the media is saying some really harsh stuff about your religion, and I can't even defend you because I don't know anything about your religion.
mhm.
So that's when I called a local mosque. By that time, we had moved back to South Dakota to finish our education. And so I'd called a small little mosque in South Dakota, and I was like, do you have classes? Do you have anything where I can go? Um, and they were like, sure, and so I went to one of their afternoon classes, a few ladies gathering, and I remember my first experience walking in to the mosque, my husband was like, "You have to cover," and I was like, "Cover with what? Like, what do you mean?" And so I walk in with a scarf in my hand, and I'm walked in the door, and I'm like, "If I'm offending anybody, you can show me how to put this thing on, because I don't want to offend you, but I have no idea what I'm doing." And they were like, "You're fine. Have a seat. You don't need it."
Yeah.
So a
Alhamdulillah.
very, very welcoming environment. And the first thing I told them is, "I'm not here to convert. If you try to convert me, I'm
I'm
leaving. I'm
gone.
just here for information." Like, I was very, very adamant about that. And subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened my heart, and I ended up taking shahada, and just, that was my first experience with the masjid. So it was very, very beautiful. It was, just a very loving, welcoming environment. However, I did notice there was a big, difference between the men and the women's in the
Hmm.
masjid that I did not, grow up with, and so that was a big change for me. It was really, really different. But I was, blessed because I was embracing everything at that point. Like, I wasn't jaded. I wasn't, questioning things. I was just embracing the diversity at that point. Um, and so, dove right in, and was, during, Ramadan, I was there trying to help with iftars, things like that, just getting into the whole spirit of everything, just trying to embrace and love the entire culture of Islam.
No, I love that. And, I'm hearing, my mom was a convert as well. And I'm hearing a little bit of like little specks of her story in it, except, my mom was like, my dad was the cutest Mexican guy she'd ever seen because she had never really met anybody from Pakistan before. So she'd be like, that cute Mexican guy is cute. So I hear you, I feel you. She did not necessarily have the same type of welcoming experience in the mosque as it sounds like you did, and perhaps that is why I have some of that baggage too. Maybe I don't, like, I think about it now because we weren't necessarily as welcomed as perhaps other people, and now that I'm talking out loud, I'm realizing that could be the stem of a lot of my frustration with the mosque, because we weren't necessarily as accepted as other people were. And we're going to get to the bottom of that. And partly because, as a mom of women, representation of yourself, what you stand for is very important. And it's not just in a quote unquote American thing, right? Like, as we're saying, like my mom was very, like you, very vocal and things, and she got a little bit of a pushback. And then I realized, like, maybe it is just an American thing, but let's say it is. Why is that bad? And how can we kind of get rid of that negative connotation in saying, putting females forward in the masjid, even if it is an American thing? Why can't we embrace it for being what it is, a potentially positive change in our community?
I completely agree with you on that. I think that there is a lot of pushback, from our community, from having, female leaders, women in position of power. I think that, unfortunately, a lot of the pushback also comes, from other women within our community.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that is one of our biggest disadvantages. And for me, being known as an outsider, or,
Mhm.
she's the convert, it it was easier for me to step into a role, I think, and take that
Yes.
on, because they were like, "Oh, well,
She's crazy
that's
anyway,
yeah, yeah,
right? They're like, "Oh, she
exactly,
knows, that's how she feels. Like,
exactly,
let her do her thing,"
right,
She's an
right?
American. They take
Yes.
over everything
ex
anyway.
Yeah,
yeah,
let them
right,
do that.
right,
Yes.
exactly. I mean, I have had people come up to my poor husband saying, like, "Can you tone your wife down just a little bit?"
And he's
And
like, "I
my
have no
husband
control over her."
exactly, that's what my husband's like, "Why are
Let
you
me grab
talking
my
to me?"
leash.
Like,
Oh my
right?
God.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're like, "Why are you talking to me?" Like, go and talk to her. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's there is that pushback for sure.
Mhm.
But I have just been, determined that I've got 4 girls, and I want them
Yes.
to have that safe space, to have that place that they can call their own, and to, be able to go out and feel comfortable and feel loved and feel connected with the masjids and the organizations within our community. I really want to empower them, and I think the best way to give them that empowerment is to lead by example.
Right.
Yes.
100%. 100%. So that was kind of your motivation to get into leadership at your particular masjid.
Right.
Can you talk about your experience, like how that started, and then your experience once you got in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when my youngest, or I'm sorry, my oldest daughter, was young, masjid going was not the best experience. She was
Hmm.
a very wild child, running all over. And at one point, I just decided I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't come back. Like, this is not,
Mhm.
a space where I felt that it was beneficial for me in worship, because I was always worrying about her. Where is she at? What is she doing? Things like that. So I took a step back and stayed home for quite a while, and I had my children back to back. And I really felt extremely lonely, like,
Mhm.
especially during the month of Ramadan. Like, we would break
Yes.
fast, and my husband would be out the door, and I'm like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do?
Hmm.
So there were years of that, and then I remember I received a phone call saying, Sister Christy, we want you to run to be on the masjid board. And I was like, what? Like, that's an option? Like
Yes.
that exists? Like, sign me up.
Uh-huh.
And so I remember the first meeting that I went to. It was quite interesting. They were like, "You're the only female in the room. Like, do you need to have another sister here with you to represent with you? They were trying to be very very accommodating, and I'm like, we're in a healthy environment. I'm fine. And then as the meeting started progressing after introductions, and the election came and went, and alhamdulillah, I got elected. Um, and then our meetings started happening, and as the meetings were going, I was very vocal, and I remember
Hmm.
probably the first time that I spoke up, um, a couple of the brothers at the table just kind of looked at me, and they're like, oh, like, you're going to
You're gonna
talk?
talk? Exactly.
Yeah,
Like, are you gonna
yeah,
actually talk and
right,
participate? What are we doing?
right. And
Hmm.
that's when I said, I'm sorry, if you were looking for that token female Muslim to sit on
Heck
your message board,
yes.
you picked the wrong candidate.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And they were like,
I'm gonna
No,
cry
we'll
for
take
this
your
woman.
opinions. We'll take your take your thing." Once again, it was just that, that's
Lip
just her
service.
style, and yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. They were just like, more like, she's out there. She's a little loud, a little vocal, but we'll just take it and go with it. Um, and so I was really blessed with that first experience that I had, because I had a lot of support. I had support from my family. I had support from the other board members. Of course, we didn't agree on everything, absolutely, and of course there was a lot of pushback and a lot of um, you know um, controversy. I would say, just on a overall scale, but it was, they were just so respectful, and it was just very beautiful, the experience that I had. And there were some policies that were in place that I really really struggled with as a female, as raising females, and trying to have that space, in that masjid zone. However, I knew that um, things had to be shifted slowly,
mhm.
and it couldn't just be a drastic change. Then you start to learn that you are working with people of all different cultures, all different backgrounds,
Mhm.
everything. And so just having that empathetic voice, I think, really really helped me. I was naive. I was very naive to the other cultures around the world, and how things were done, and why they were done that way. Um, and so I think that really helped me just have that compassion and understanding, and know that things are going to take time to change and to develop. And so I was really blessed with that first opportunity. It was mind opening for me.
Hmm. Now, As a woman on the board, did you have any opportunities to talk to any other Muslim women on boards at different masajid and kind of figure out like, okay, did they maybe mentor or help you troubleshoot?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, when I first started, they said, "This is the person you're taking over," and she resigned very, very quickly after she had taken the spot. And this is the person that she took over, and she had resigned very quickly after
And
the
you have to
spot.
wonder why.
Yes, and so
Did
both
you
of
ask
them
that
were
question, Kristy?
right. Yes, and both of the women just told me, "Good luck. Like we can't do it."
Oh.
And I said, "Okay, challenge
Hmm.
accepted."
Oh, I love
Um,
it.
Yeah, and so I actually served on that board for a full 2 terms. I served on that board for 6 years.
MashaAllah.
And yeah, it was a blessing for me. But and also I am so pleased to say the one that took my position is just as much as a go-getter and a
I love
powerhouse,
that.
and is
I
still
love
there
it.
and is still rocking everything. So I absolutely love that.
Was it the snail's pace that had frustrated your predecessors? Or was there
Um,
other stuff that they were dealing with or were not able to deal with that forced them to leave?
yeah, I don't believe it was the snail's pace, that was frustrating them. I just think that, um, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I didn't really dive deep into either one of their
Mm,
experiences to find out, what caused them to take their step back. But yeah, I mean, it's still moving at a snail's pace, for
oh,
sure. Yes, there's definitely not been the change that I'd hoped and dreamed for, um, but I have hopeful thoughts. I really hope that it's going to continue growing and changing and developing into what's needed for our daughters in our community.
inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah. Like
Inshallah.
I love that. And the fact of the matter is it's so important to have that representation, whether it's on the board,
Right.
whether his like, the vice president, whether or not you agree with her politics, seeing somebody of color and female, like it is slightly empowering and having
Absolutely.
female um female people in the masjids. I mean, we make up over 50% of the population, except you're sitting here telling me that you're on a board and you're the only female on the board. What is wrong with that
Oh,
picture, first and foremost, And second of
absolutely.
like, the representation matters because you can bring a perspective, of a situation or of a problem or of a particular issue that perhaps the men on the panel cannot bring.
Mhm.
So
I 100% agree with that.
so what is something that you were able to in the discussion, if you can talk about it,
Mhm.
to bring your perspective that was a change for the good at Share Masjid?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that there were a lot of changes that happened. Just having that women voice, I
Mhm.
think was important. I was very much involved with listening to the women in our community
Yes.
and asking them what can I do for you? Like, how can I do this? And also, how can you help me get there?
Yes.
Right.
I think that that's one of the biggest things is that we want someone to make the changes happen for us, okay, but we don't necessarily know how to support them.
Mm,
So it's very important, I think, that when you see a woman in leadership, that you support them in any way possible you can. If they're asking for help, if they're asking for a voice, if they're asking for anything, even just a pat on the back, hey, you're doing a great job. We know
Yes.
this is challenging and we know, what you're going through, but we support you. I think that that's really, really critical. So I was very involved with the women in the community, asking for their feedback. What do you need? What are we looking for? And I would bring that to the table every time. And I would just, if there was pushback on no, we can't do that. Why?
Mhm.
What is the reasoning behind that? And I would tell them because I have to go back and talk to these women and explain to them the reason that this is being denied, this request is being denied. So
Right.
I'm not going to go back and just tell them no. Like if you have a valid reason, please explain that to me so that I can share that with our community members. So holding them accountable, I think, was kind of my biggest achievement. It was before, it was just like, no, we said no, that's not going to happen. Okay, next. No, why is that not going to happen? Please elaborate for me, break it down for me. And sometimes it just came to cultural differences. Sometimes it just came down to, the imam is not comfortable with it. Okay, thank you. That is a reason. Am I comfortable
Mhm.
with that reason? No, but at least I can go back and tell our community members that, I'm fighting for you. I know this is what you want, but this is
But
the reason. And so I think just holding people accountable was really important for me.
I think that's like it's a duty for all Muslims, right? To be questioning, because when leadership is just operating, it's almost in a fascist way. You can't do that. Like that is not
Right.
the Islamic way. So you must
Right.
provide a reason. And I think within reason, you've got to be accommodating to the congregation, especially as
Yes.
Zeba said, to that portion of the congregation that is contributing a lot of legwork to the programming at the masjid. And for those who don't know, Christie's the particular masjid where she served is, it's made national news, not because of the board, but for, like Islamophobic reasons. It's
Right.
made national news multiple times. But, that is a masjid that we would travel 30 minutes to get to because the facilities are so beautiful. And, the khutbahs are amazing. The programming is amazing. So, again, the general atmosphere is very positive.
Yeah,
But,
so I'm so sorry. I just wanted to jump in there. Actually, the board that I served on was in Chandler. I actually worked as an
oh,
employee at the other mosque
the other
that you're
one.
talking about.
Oh, okay. I thought you were on
Yes.
leadership for both. Okay, awesome. Thank you
Yes.
for
No, I was an
clarifying that.
employee at the other one, and that was kind of a whole different ballpark for me.
Oh, we
Stepping
should talk
into
about that one then.
employment. Yes, yes, definitely,
Okay. Because that's still a
definitely.
leadership position.
Absolutely,
This,
absolutely.
nationally renowned masjid for all the wrong reasons. But
Right,
when you were there serving in that
right.
capacity, can you talk about
Mhm.
what you saw as problematic and how you addressed it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that one of the biggest issues that I saw was that tokenism of a female
Mhm.
representation. Like we have a female working here, we have this environment here, um, but was there that opportunity to have your voice heard and to be taken seriously and respectfully, or was this just a position where, okay, we have a female in action and that kind of looks good for us as a community.
Hmm.
So I think that it was a completely different approach in that area. It was much more of a tokenism position for sure, and not having that opportunity to, as an employee versus a board member, you don't have as much opportunity to be as vocal as you really
Right.
want to be in certain situations and certain circumstances, and just kind of letting that be known, and issues that you see, and you bring things to the board and things like that. But once again, when you have board members that are predominantly male
Mhm.
and have that token female on their board, it becomes a little bit frustrating um, to always be the scapegoat. I guess I would
Mhm.
say it really became that way. I remember, from my first experience serving on a board to serving on multiple boards since then, the first thing you do when they're like electing their board members is, when it comes to the position of like a secretary, you're like, don't look up, don't look up, don't look up, because that's what. Sorry, my dry voice.
Oh,
You
that's
know that
my
that's
problem too, for people
Fasting
that
yeah,
throat.
talk too much and
right,
fasting.
right. So you know that that's kind of okay. Well, that's what we're looking for, just a female on the board to take some notes for us,
Hmm.
um, and then they get someone like me who's very vocal and very adamant about making changes and trying to help our community broaden its spectrum. Um, so it was quite a bit different being an employee for sure.
I'm gonna let her deal with her voice because I know exactly how
Oh,
it
yeah.
is. So Isma, I'll ask you while poor Kristy is getting her voice back.
The hairball out, yeah.
And you've also been in leadership positions where you were speaking. I think I still remember you speaking on a panel and they directed like a medical question to some non. Was that you that this happened?
It was, yeah,
And then it
and it
was like,
was
and you're like, I'm the one who's the doctor up here, and yet you're talking to this guy, but I'm the one. So like, how have you handled those types of situations? Because I know you've also been in situations where they kind of don't take your word or take you seriously, even though you are the person in charge at that time.
No, what was awesome is it wasn't even a medical question. It was a female, like a woman's point of view, a Muslim woman's point of view at an
Okay,
open
okay.
house at a masjid where a non-Muslim directed the question to me
Oh,
about
okay,
women in
that's right.
Islam, and I answered it, and I was the token woman, but I
Mhm.
was actually substituting for the actual leader. So I'm not the leader. I was substituting for her because she couldn't make it. And so I am the token woman sitting on a table of imams. And granted, they did not know that I was a physician. But in the audience in the first row was one of my friends. And he does happen to be a physician and he does happen to be kind of semi popular. And I'm sitting at the end of the table and they pulled him up out of the audience to come. Initially, he was standing beside me, and then they're like, "Oh, can you give him your chair or something?" He was mortified because he was
Oh my
like, they're like
gosh.
introducing him
Uh-uh.
as Doctor this and Doctor that. He was like, Dr. Joffrey answered this question. And so
Yes.
you could see the light bulbs kind of slowly dim and flicker over the rest of the panel, but they still
Oh.
didn't pick it up until after the event was over. So maybe another hour and a half later. And then they're like, oh, so where are you from? And whose wife are you? Is now
You're
I'm
like, "I don't
is
need."
what I'm and I'm like, that doesn't matter. Like, whose wife am I? Like, I came here representing this other organization, and I answered a question that only I was the only one on the board who could have answered that, but
Yeah.
I think they kind of assume because they have lots of scholarly knowledge, and
Mhm.
they're way smarter than me when it comes to like usul al-fiqh and aqidah and all of that. Absolutely. I would never answer a question on that, especially if you guys are right there. But y'all should also not be answering questions about my experience as a Muslim woman. And
Yes.
that in front of a non-Muslim audience who immediately is going to judge you as a misogynistic pig.
Yes.
Like, you don't do that. And then watching the awkwardness with the other physician who was not a panel speaker. And then they ended up
Mm-mm.
pulling a chair and squishing me over
Oh,
so that he could
no.
sit on the panel now. So it was just, I was completely outnumbered at that point. So that was my experience, with this all male panel, which essentially that's what it was, because I could see them. They were pulling questions out of boxes and they were diverting questions away from me. And I can read them,
Mm.
from over here. And that is very common. And I think what Kristy has said is the male contingency on these boards is one thing, but the male contingency with foreign backgrounds is a whole nother thing. And I
Hmm.
think that they're very tone deaf to the American Muslim experience and the American Muslim opinion and American Muslim needs, because they're carrying over their cultural baggage and their cultural expectations, which is why, Kristy, you're so loud and you actually want to do stuff like our women, they just want to bake bread all day or they just want to have babies all the time. Like, what are you doing? No. And Kristy's like, no, I already did that. I'm a
Right.
dang good cook. People all over town talk about my food, and I got 4 babies, and I'm a Girl Scout leader, and yes, I can make change in the mustard too. I think
Sure.
they get really threatened when you have a triple threat like that, which is a woman who can literally do it all. And I think part of the change that has to be made on these masjid boards is to start electing people that are representative of the American Muslim population. And when only 20%
Mhm.
of it is immigrant, I think it's time to change.
Right.
I have yet to see a Black Muslim board member. I have
Yeah.
yet to see a Black female Muslim board member. When I start seeing a couple of those, then I'll know that we've finally we've gotten to the threshold of where we need to be. But I think that that is a huge reason why there's such a disconnect between Masajid congregation, because the Masjid board does not look like the actual congregation,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
right?
That is. huge. I completely agree with you. Maybe it's because I'm a convert that I especially feel for our converts in the community,
Yeah.
um,
Yes, yes.
who are not given that space that I was given. When they walk into a masjid, they're immediately judged, criticized. Why aren't you covered? Why are you dressed like that? What are you
Mm-hmm.
wearing? And then when they do want to embrace Islam and when they do want to take Shahada, I've been at masjids where they're only allowed to do it at the door, at the entrance. Like you cannot come into the masjid floor where the men are. No, that's not
What?
happening.
No
And the
way.
women's section is in a different area, and we can't go to the women's section. So we're just going to do this here in the entryway. Okay, we're good with that, right?
Nice and intimate.
No,
No, no,
no, we are
it's
not
mind blowing
interested.
for me.
Yes.
Yeah, that this is, and then, okay, thanks, I don't want to come by. And they just walk out the door. It's like, what just happened to that poor
Mm-hmm.
individual,
No
And
cake or
so,
presents or anything?
right,
Because that's like their
right.
birthday.
Yeah, I'm telling you, when I took
Oh.
Shahada, I still get goosebumps. I mean,
I
when,
cry every time I witness a shahada. Every single
yeah,
time I'm
it's,
bawling like a baby.
I was blessed that the mosque that I did it in, they asked me to come and do it at a Sunday school service. They were
Aw.
like, "We
Oh.
want the kids to see this." Like,
Aw.
and I remember, like, as I'm taking shot, I'm crying and I'm emotional and just tears coming. And afterward, having all of these little kids just hug you and
Oh,
embrace you and
so
love you. Like,
cute.
Pureness.
I get goosebumps, just the purity of it. And so I want that experience for everyone who takes Shahada. Like, I really
Yes.
want them to feel that emotional connection and to to feel that love. So yeah, I think that our message boards need to change and embrace that, and bring on some more loud people like me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I know loud women are scary because they say that they're not used to it, but I have seen some of these women from different cultures, different Muslim cultures, and they are louder than we are.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
to say that, it's an American phenomenon that we like to rock the boat, I think is very short-sighted and untrue.
Mm,
We're supposed to rock the boat as Muslims if we see an injustice being done. So may Allah protect us from oppressors and protect us from becoming oppressors. I think that's really huge. And I think the board loses sight of that. Um, I know that the boards that I have experience with at the Masajid, not in my hometown, but certainly here, there's no election.
mm,
So it's like,
Really?
mm-mm,
no, there's no election, there's no recycling, there's no change. So it's the same old, nothing gets done. The congregation gets frustrated. They're super vocal about it, but still they're financing it. They still continue
right.
to finance it. And I'm like, when you are financing inefficiency or oppression, you become an oppressor too.
Mm,
And I
Yeah.
think that's super duper important for us, as like you said, Kristy, like can women not only do women need to be on the boards, the women in the community also need to show up for that
right,
woman, or I'm going to
right.
say for those women on the board.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of brothers on masjid boards historically have said, oh, well, the sisters are too busy raising the kids or they're working or whatever, and they don't want to be involved.
Mm,
But if you're making announcements that the toilet is stopped and needs to be replaced in the masjid bathroom, but you don't have the 2 seconds to announce to the masjid, hey, we need more sisters on the board. And this is what we
Mm-hmm.
need you to do.
right.
And this is what we would like you to
Right,
head. That takes like 5,
right.
10, 15 seconds. Like you can announce that on Jummah, and then let's see how many women show up. Because when they start hearing over and over that there is a space, there is a seat for us at the table, then maybe somebody's going to raise their hand. But you know what? If the mic doesn't work and she's behind a barrier, she's missed all of
Right,
that. And usually there's 17 kids climbing on top of her and she didn't hear that announcement anyway.
And apparently
right.
peeing on them too,
And
because
peeing
that's
on
what
them
I
too.
found out.
Yes.
I'm peeing on
Yes.
them too.
Now, for full
Right.
disclosure, a lot of the times it was my kid that was peeing on me. So
Okay, that makes me feel
I had
better
a couple
because
of
I'm like,
those.
what kid is coming up to you and peeing on you at the
Well, they're
masjid?
always
And
long and
so
diapers get
it's
soggy,
something
and
to
then there's no
do.
diaper
Right.
changing table at the masjid. So what are you going to do?
Right, the diaper
Which,
changing
Right.
stations,
which, by
yes.
the way, my two boys, I talk about this all the time. They think momming while Muslim is literally about changing diapers. So the fact that we're talking about changing diapers,
We're not liars.
We're not
That's
liars.
great. That's great.
That's
And
awesome.
for me, I think one of the things is I made that space for myself. As I said,
Yes.
I'm a mom with 4 kids. Girls, I have a meeting at the Masjid and your father's not home from work. Get in the car. We're going.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we gotta go.
We gotta
Exactly.
go. We gotta go. And I would set them outside the door and I'm like, okay, you guys do your activity, whatever. And I can't tell you how many times they knocked on the door, they interrupted, they came in. I could hear them fighting outside. And I would just tell
Hmm.
the other board members, that's my family. That's my life.
Mhm.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
They're gonna be
Right.
fine. We're gonna be fine. Let's just keep moving on.
Get the
You
work
know?
done. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely. So I
If
think
it's
that
not
that's
bothering you, it shouldn't be bothering them.
right, right,
Right.
right,
But you
exactly.
know it does
Exactly.
because they're the ones that are shushing the kids or sisters, remove your kid from the
Right.
prayer space if your kid is crying. No, when the Prophet ﷺ heard a child crying, he shortened his prayer.
Shortened his
He
prayer.
didn't tell the
Mhm.
mother to shush the kid. He shortened his
Right,
prayer. You can,
right.
instead of like lecturing and lecturing and lecturing about, oh, lower your gaze or whatever, it's not, I'm not going to call it
Right.
nonsense, but the stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be a priority, shorten your lecture and maybe the kids won't cry.
Mhm.
Let them eat before 9 o'clock, but oh, you're busy fundraising for the masjid that doesn't have space for the women. Congratulations. So, Kristy, for women who want to initiate a project or want to make change
Mhm.
at a masjid that is predominantly male led, um, how do you think they can crack that nut? How do you think they can get a seat at the table? And if
Right.
they can't get a seat at the table, who should they talk to and what should they say in order to get that project initiated?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. And I think that women have so many great ideas and so many things that we want
Mhm.
to get done. And they're brilliant ideas. And if we would just get them all implemented, we'd be running perfectly. But I know that that's not gonna happen overnight. So I
Inshallah, one
think
day.
that inshallah, inshallah, I think the first step is to get involved in the community that you want to see the change in. Okay,
Hmm.
Mhm.
that's the first step is make yourself known, talk to other people in the community. If you are an outsider and you come in and say, I want this change, this is what I want to happen, and I want it done overnight, and you're going to get a lot of backlash and you're going to be discouraged, frustrated, and you're going to leave saying they didn't want my ideas. So I think the first
Mhm.
thing is just getting yourself into the community that you want to see the change into. Find out who the board members are. Find out when elections are, if there are elections, right? And how do you get involved in that? How can you volunteer in that? How can you, and then if there is a female representation already on the board, friend them, friend them,
Yes.
talk to them. How can I help you so that we can make
Yes.
this a community that we're looking for? And step up when there's an opportunity. If there's a position on the board, many times people are begging people to look for that woman to take over, and we need to have more than one woman on the board.
Yeah.
100%. Hmm.
And right now it's really, I can tell you, when I left it was really a challenge to find one woman to replace me. So we
Mhm.
really, really need to get women comfortable and letting them know they can do this. Like there is so much that they can do, and they can do it with their kids. They can do it. We're doing it for our kids. So why not get our kids involved and bring them to the message when you have a meeting? And it's okay. You know, your husband can man the fort for little bits and she'll at the house if needed, but yeah, go get involved and get active, and I think that that's the most important thing, and just to realize that it's going to take time, so don't get discouraged, don't get frustrated. um, it's going to take time, and I know that that's not anything anybody wants to hear. They want the change to happen immediately, but
Yes,
just be persistent, and inshallah, it will come to fruition, inshallah.
inshallah.
I love that. I love that. Those are so many different pearls that we can take with us and kind of help each other out. But you had mentioned a little bit earlier, Christy, about how women specifically are kind of in saying that they don't want the change or they don't. How can we convince Muslim women in our community that it is important for them and it's okay for them to take positions of leadership, and quite frankly, it's encouraged to
Right.
take a position of leadership. How can we convince these women that are a little bit apprehensive, as it sounds like, or a little resistant, that, you know what, it's okay and your representation is important?
Right. So I think the biggest reason, at least that I heard from people not wanting to accept the position, is the time. I don't have time.
Yeah.
How much time is this going to take? Oh my gosh, everything's going to fall on my shoulders, which is why, as a community, if women support these women in these positions, they don't feel that burden. They feel supported, they feel loved, they feel encouraged. And, if someone wants to implement a change, then they have someone to go back to and they say, hey guys, can you help me out with this? And kind of, offsetting that burden from just one person and being able to call on volunteers to come and help them and to just bring that change to light, I think is really important. So just letting the people know that it doesn't have to be one person that does it all. That's not going to be sustainable,
Mhm.
because that one person is going to leave eventually, and you want this to continue, and so you want it to be embedded in the community, and the best way to do that is to get people to help and to support you. And so I think that is the biggest thing that we can do as women in our community, is support those women leaders.
I love it. Yeah, nobody
100%.
walks alone. That's for sure.
Right,
At least not here. So,
right, right.
all right, you ready for the final segment?
We're going to do a segment that is it's new, but I'm super excited about it. And quite frankly, Usman and I did it last week and we had so much fun that I'm like, I'm jealous of the people that get to do this. It's called rapid fire. So essentially, I'm going to ask you either some words or some questions, and you have to respond right away with the first thought that comes to your mind. Are you ready? And it's not about SOLs, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. When I saw this rapid fire, I thought it was for Uzma, so I didn't even look over any of this. So let's go. Let's
Good.
bring it.
Good. It's even better that way.
What is your favorite book?
My favorite book is Kite Runner.
Oh, I love that book. Oh my
That's a
god.
hard one.
What was your first job?
Ooh, my first job was a waitress.
Oh, I
Where?
love that. So you probably have a lot
Yes.
of like appreciation for these people.
Service.
Absolutely.
For the people in there. So what is a hidden talent that you have that we don't know about, because we know all of your not so hidden talents?
Mm. Wow. That is a great question. I'm pretty out there. I'm pretty vocal about what I can do and what I can't do. Um,
Mhm.
I would say that I am an ESL teacher, and I don't think a lot of people know that about me. So
Oh, I didn't know
Ooh.
that.
yeah, I teach children in China English.
Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah,
I love that. Okay, so what is one thing, one lesson, this is the final question, that your mother or your father has taught you that has completely changed your life or has kind of directed you to the person that you are today as Kristy Sabbah?
I love that question. I love that question. And I will honor this question to my mom, who recently passed away. Um,
Oh.
she Be who you want, be who you are. Don't let people change
Mhm.
you. You are who you are. People are going to love it and embrace it, or they're not going to like it, and let them move on. Be who you are. So
I
I
love
think
Ah,
that
that.
that's,
God
yeah,
rest her
yeah.
soul. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is beautiful. And you
Amazing.
have done that and exemplified that to all of us. And I mean,
Mhm.
you're that model mom and that mom leader that we aspire to be or aspire to support by showing up
Yes.
for and,
I try.
being delegated the tasks that you need done, and changing our leadership for the better because we have so many opportunities to improve and it
Right.
just doesn't need to be a stagnant swamp anymore. We can make the masjid alive like it was 1400 years ago and
Yes.
operate the way it was supposed to, like it did 1400 years ago. And inshallah, we'll
Absolutely.
get there. One,
Inshallah.
no,
I
two
mean,
women on the board at a time.
Two women
there
on the
you
board
go.
at a time. Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Any final thoughts?
I don't have any. I just want to thank you guys so much for offering this space for me to talk.
Love
This
it.
was so much fun. I was a little nervous, to be honest, but it was so much
Oh, there's
fun. I
never
really
any reason to be nervous.
it was great. It was great. Thank you so much.
I mean,
This episode of Momming While Muslim is brought to you by Guidance Residential. They're offering a Ramadan gift to you with $500 off your refinancing. Go ahead and click on our links in order to find out how to get that. This episode is also sponsored by Muslim Kids TV, where you can find over 15,000 resources, including Islamic videos, games, and ebooks for your children. Use code MKTV2021 to get a 25% discount off of your annual subscription.